In this section of our tutorial, we're going to start looking at some ways of automating an arrangement. Now, if you have access to the project files, we want to go ahead and open up FunkyJam so that you can follow along. Now, in this first beginning measures, all we have are drums and bass, and this creates an intro of sorts, but it's kind of flat. It's not changing. Let's take a listen. I'm pressing my spacebar now to begin playback. Okay, so how can we create some movement to that? We'll just do some volume automation. Now, the first technique we're going to use is over here in the mixer section, and this is much like an automation of a clip in the envelope section. What we're going to do here is take this empty box below the track and the name, click and hold, and choose mixer. I want to automate some aspect of the mixer. The default that opens up below that is the speaker on. We're going to click and hold on that and simply choose track volume. Now this red line we see is basically telling us the track volume is currently set at a certain volume and it's not being changed. So what I'm going to do is at the end of this 4-bar intro here, I'm going to double click on the red line and create a point that stays there. I'm coming to the beginning now, double clicking again and pulling down after I click and hold, and now we'll get a fade in. Let's listen to the beginning again now with just the funky drums fading in. Okay, so again, we're just simply using the same techniques that we learned for clip automation. So that's a basic thing. We can automate several different parameters here. But let's move on now and learn a different way. Now here we have the bass track, and I'd like it to fade in also. But what I'm going to do is use parameter automation. Now once you enter into global record, I'm going to stop again to take us back to the beginning and enter into global record mode. Anything that you change and adjust out here, basically anything you see, is going to be recorded. So I'm simply going to take the track volume for the bass part here, and I'm going to pull it down, and let's take a listen. I just want to see how it sounds at the beginning of this volume. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So let's go back, enter in global record, and I'm going to be ready to change this as soon as I start. I'm clicking and holding. And still going up with my mouse. And stopping. So you can see now that all the automation changes that I've created so far have been written into memory. Let's zoom in on that some. You can see it started at a certain volume and then started increasing, and wherever I stopped it went back to the pre-existing level. Now I'm just going to move my line over here a little bit. Pull it down here. Now this automation point is where it was when it began. I can simply double click and erase that, and now the volume I left off with after the increase stays in place. Let's go back to the beginning, stop button, and play. And the drums come in underneath. Okay, so that's all great and fine. I'm going to undo that recording, and we're going to look at another way of doing the same thing that might feel a little bit better. I'm going to head back over to session view by pressing the tab key, and again we're dealing with this bass track number 2 here, and simply the volume is already down low. I'm going to press the stop button to bring me back to the beginning. I'm going to hide this lower section, Command Shift or Option Alternate and L, and once we grab right here we can resize the mixer. So I'm clicking and holding once I get that double arrow and pulling upward. Now what this means is I have a great bit of room now just to grab this control and move the volume. So I'm going to enter into global record mode and get my mouse ready and simply use the space bar to begin the recording process. Okay, space bar now. Click and hold. Now the advantage to this is that having this much space to move a control with a mouse is very comfortable, and it smoothed out a lot of the bumps that created over in the other window for me. Let's tab back over, and again we can see this line. It even looks more smooth, and yet we still have this ability to, it resumes the previous automation. Again, I'll double click to delete that. So now we have an intro that really works. I'm going to change my zoom a bit and play the intro again. Stop key, and now clicking on the play button. So all this fades in, and then we get to the electric piano. Okay, so that's 3 major techniques you can use for adding and editing automation that's in place. We did the drawing, simply pulling it up over here in the automation view. Then we did a parameter change by here in the parameter of the mixer in the arrangement view. And then we pressed our tab key and came over and used the actual volume fader for the bass track. That makes it much easier to automate things. And again, we resize the mixer by clicking and holding here. Okay, tab key back to session. Once we've done this, we can freely edit, and the normal techniques. I can double click, create a point, and pull this up so it doesn't start in silence. Let's listen to that. So the drums are faintly in from the beginning. So you see the ability to add in automation comes easily whenever you just enter into Global Record.